ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الأخلاء يومئذ بعضهم لبعض عدو إلا المتقين صدق الله العظيم وقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم المرء مع دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear respected elders and brothers, mothers and sisters, we enter into a very auspicious time and very close to even more auspicious time as we have the better part of 2 months left until the Mubarak and blessed month of Ramadan comes within us, it comes in front of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the life so we can reach there and get the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everybody knows that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from 2 months before was making the dua, Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa ballighna Ramadan. That, oh Allah, please give us barakat and blessings in the Rajab and Sha'ban wa ballighna Ramadan and make us reach the Ramadan. The ulama have written because the reason why Rasulullah was making the dua to reach the Ramadan is because the person gets the ability and gets the opportunity to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that month. And in that month, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frees and emancipates so many people from the fires of Jahannam. The decision is made and the stamp is put on the account that that person has been saved from the fires of Jahannam. May Allah ta'ala make us from amongst those. The ayat which I recited and the hadith which I said in the khutbah, the Masnoon khutbah, is the focus of my talk today. And there's always been a question that comes within us, and it's a problem that we have living here in America. It is the clash between the American culture and our deen. It's been there, it's always there. We all experience it, no matter how pious the pious is or how lenient the lenient are. All of us, we have experience in dealing with the American culture, and with that, and being in the American culture, and with that also having to handle and having to act upon our deen. And it's something of great importance also, because the hadith which I recited from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that the people around us and the people who we may become close to, it's very important we are aware of who we are befriending and who we are becoming friends with. Not that we cannot be friends with them. We become good friends with them and close friends. But we have to always beware. It's like the person who rides on a horse, even though he may know how to ride on the horse, but he's always aware, because the horse, of course, is an animal that can stand up and kick back and you can fall off the back. So even driving our cars, even though many of us have passed our driving test with flying colors and we've been driving for many years, and we've got one hand on the steering wheel, and hopefully we're not texting, or hopefully we're not talking on the phone also, but we are nonchalant, but at the same time we are careful. So even though we are nonchalant and we're going to our jobs and our kids are going to our schools and we are doing all these things, but we have to be aware and careful, because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned al-mar'u ma'a dini khalili, that a person will be on the deen and on the religion of his close friend. The beautiful words of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلُ. So therefore each one of you should be careful on who you take friends with. Be aware that if you have a friend, the deen that is with that friend will probably have an effect on you. We call this the inevitable effect of accompanying others. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in another hadith which is quoted in Bukhari, he's given an example of someone who is hamilun misk, a person who carries itr or carries the perfume. Sometimes we go in the Macy's stores and you pass by the perfume section, you also got some free perfume also, right? Because it's on your clothes now and you start smelling good. And at the same time, some sanitation truck comes by. When you come home and you walk into your house, your wife starts asking you, or your kids start asking you, why do you smell like a sanitation worker now? Why? Because the inevitable effect of accompanying something. Nabi Sallallahu said, if you are next to someone who sells perfume, then the inevitable effect of that, good of course, a good effect of that, is that the perfume smell will come on you. And the inevitable effect of the bad, like if you are standing next to a blacksmith, we don't have blacksmiths much here, but because their job, it has a lot of smoke and burning in it, so the clothes get burned and the clothes get all soiled up and all messed up with the smoke. So Nabi Sallallahu said the inevitable effect of someone who's evil will be that your clothes or your face will become blackened from that. This is the inevitable effect which Allah Ta'ala has also spoken about as well in many ayat of Quran. And on the day of Qiyamah, the only friendship that will benefit us is that which taqwa was the basis of. Al-akhillau yawma idhin ba'duhum li ba'din. Close friends, Khalil, a very close friend who in this dunya were friends. They call them blood brothers, right? Even when they're younger, they cut themselves and they match the blood with the other blood. Today, na'udhu billah, Allah protect us, people get tattoos of their wife's name and the wife gets the tattoo of the husband's name. And then when they get divorced, now they have to look for the laser treatment to erase it. Or they draw something else on it, or draw an X on it, or they put I hate on top of that thing and I hate this person. So people do this as a connection. On the day of Qiyamah, Ibn Kathir rahmatullahi says that every single friendship which its basis was not on deen and taqwa, yanqalibu ila al-adawa. It will turn into enmity. On the day of Qiyamah, they will hate each other. A person has a close friend and they meet many times for many different reasons. If it's not for the deen of Allah Ta'ala, throughout the life, how much time is wasted? We spend a lot of time in our friendships. People become very close and friends. They spend a lot of time with each other. So Allah Ta'ala gives us the warning here. And this is what we have to be careful about. And the only way that we can survive in these environments is that we have the qadr and the value of our deen, our religion. We have to have a great value of our deen. The Sahabah radiallahu anhum, it's not that they were raised and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came in a madrasa environment. It wasn't like that. That he came and there was masjids and no. There was a culture also that he was involved in and he came in. And he also had to, like they say, travel upstream against the tide. It was difficult for him. It was difficult for Sahaba also radiallahu anhum. But we find that they had a great value of deen. It was very easy for them, or very hard for them, let me re-quote myself, it was very hard for them to give up anything in deen. SubhanAllah, comes in my mind, the Sahaba, if we look at their mind frame, Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, فَقَرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. This was khitab and spoken to the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. And this was telling them that there's a concession for you, O Sahaba. I'm making some takhfif. I'm lightening the religion for you. And I'm telling you that you don't have to stay up the whole night. فَقَرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. You may read whatever is easy for you. The Sahaba, their mind frame was such that whenever a concession came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Allah Ta'ala or His Rasul was telling the Sahaba that you may do less, I'm telling you something easier for you, the Sahaba were apprehensive. Are you sure about that? That's why in that surah, if we notice, Allah Ta'ala mentions it twice. After that, Allah Ta'ala mentions all the things that why He's saying that. Some of you will be traveling, some of you can't handle it, some of you in the path of Allah Ta'ala, some of you are sick. There's reasons why I'm telling you that you don't have to stay up the whole night. In the beginning, Sahabis stay up the whole night with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah Ta'ala said, فَقَرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْ. You can read whatever's easy from the Quran. After mentioning all that, Allah had to tell him again, فَقَرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْ. You can read from whatever's easy for you. Why? Because the Sahaba were apprehensive. We don't have to stay up the whole. Are you sure? I'm going to do it again. You had to tell him a few times. Amr bin As radiallahu anhu used to fast every day. And he was finishing a Quran daily almost. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, excuse me, he advised Amr bin As that you should hold back. You can fast, for example, every other day, the fast of Dawood. Better you fast 3 days every month. We call this Siyam al-Dahr. If a person fasts every 3 days, Nabi himself has said in a hadith of Muslim that each fast is counted as 10 days. It's like you did 30 fasts every month, and the whole year get reward, which we call Ayami Bayith. And also a person could do any 3 days during the month and get these rewards. Amr bin As, he said, I can do more than that, O Rasulullah. Nabi Sam's telling him, if the Nabi told us you don't have to fast, what do we do? So he's saying, no, I can do more, I can do more, I can do more. And he didn't take the nasiha from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So he said that I was difficult and I was hard on myself, and then it became hard for me. Even in one hadith he says, I wish I would have taken the concession and the rukhsa that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave me, because I've gotten old now and I've gotten very weak. If a person fasts a lot, later on in life it gives problems to him. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are giving concession to Sahabah, but Sahaba are reluctant to take those concessions. But when Allah Ta'ala added something on, and you have to do something, they were the first to do it. Very quickly they did it. This was the qadr, and this was the value that the Sahaba had in their deen. That's all it was. They valued their deen, and they didn't give it up for small reasons. For major reasons also. We find their life was at threat. There was a threat on their lives, and still they did not give it up. Abdullah bin Hudhafa radiallahu an, a famous Sahabi at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, was offered by the Christian king at the time of half of his kingdom if he only apostated from Islam and accepted Christianity. He was about to offer him half of his kingdom. And he was true to his word. He was serious about it. He wanted to be one of those kings that made a Sahabi apostate, na'udhu billah. And what did Abdullah bin Hudhafa say? Abdullah bin Hudhafa said that if you gave me all that you had, وَمَا تَمْلِكُ الْعَرَبِ, and whatever the Arab had also at that time, and give it to me in such a way that I can get all those possessions and leave the deen tarfat ayn, only one blink of an eye, and come back and be a Muslim also and have those possessions with me as well, I would not do it. I would not leave the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Half of the kingdom. This was the value that the Sahaba had for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But of course the question arises that, yeah, Sheikh Mikaeel, those were the Sahaba. What about us? Those were the Sahaba, what about us? So the nasihat and the advice for us is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us in this country. He's put us amongst this culture. And this culture is not 100% evil. There are many good things about it. Even the basis of it is not against Islam. For example, being successful in dunya, gaining money. Islam does not say that you don't do this. There were some Sahaba who were the Zahid, but they were mustasna. They were an exception to the rule. Most of the Sahaba, ulama say about 8 out of the 10 ashara mubashara. They were people who had jobs, they had businesses, and they were quite well off also. We know that Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh was the richest person in Medina. Abdurrahman bin Auf, if you calculate it, his wealth was about, these days the value, $30 billion was his wealth when he passed away. He was a billionaire. It was made taqseem to all his family, and they got a lot of money each person. So there were many Sahaba, and Allah Ta'ala has mentioned the ayat of Quran about the quality of Sahaba, and who were they? رِجَالٌ لَا تُلْهِيهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيٌّ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. They were such people that they were in their businesses, but their businesses did not distract them from the dhikr and from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even Allah Ta'ala talks about Dawood alayhi salam. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ فَضْلًا. Allah Ta'ala gave him incredible blessings. And one of the blessings He gave him was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَأَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ. Allah Ta'ala gave him the miracle that steel and metal and ore used to just melt in his hands. This was a miracle that he had. And Allah Ta'ala told Dawood alayhi salam, أَنِعْمَ السَّابِغَاتِ, that when you are working, make sure you make these coats of iron, because he used to make the iron for the knights and the warriors. He would make these things out of metal because he had that great quality. He'd make good. They said the first one to make the coat of iron or the suit of iron from chains was Dawood alayhi salam. Before it was just a sheet of metal. But since he was able to make the loops, so he was the first one to use it as chains, which made a person fight and become very mobile. If a person has a sheet and you push him the night, if you push him on the floor, he can't get up. As long as he's not floored, he's fine. But once he's floored, he's done. So he used to make these metal and beautiful things. And Allah Ta'ala told him, وَقَدِّرْ فِي السَّرْدِ, and make sure you calculate in making those loops. Abu Hassan al-Nadwi rahmatullah alayh, he said in tafsir of this ayat that this means that if a person works, he should do his job correctly. He should do it good. But then Allah Ta'ala tells Dawood alayhi salam, وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. With that work and with your job and you're making the good money and you're doing everything and you're working with your own hands and you've got your career, don't forget about the good deeds. وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Allah Ta'ala is watching us, He knows us. Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayh, under the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we have made the earth dhalulan, we have made it very soft and you can travel in it. فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ. And make sure you travel in the corners of it, وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ, and eat from His rizq. Ibn Kathir in tafsir of this, he says Allah Ta'ala is talking about traveling for tijara. You can go and travel and make money and have businesses and do that. It's matloob in deen, no problem. A person can have businesses, a person can do the things he wants. Ibn Kathir, under the tafsir, I was reading it this morning, under the tafsir, he has brought the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is related in the book Musnad Imam Ahmad, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says and shows the mizaj and the attitude of this ummah. And he says, لَوْ أَنَّكُمْ تَتَوَكَّلُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقَّ التَّوَكُّلِ. If you were to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to the way He's supposed to be relied on, what is the real tawakkul? لَرَزَقَكُمْ كَمَا يَرْزُقُ الطَّيْرِ. He would supply you and provide you like He provides the birds. What do the birds do? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not giving the answer of an animal who sits there and opens his mouth and food comes in it. No. The bird, he goes out in the morning with his stomach empty. And when he comes back in the afternoon or later on the day, وَتَرُوحُ بِطَانًا, he comes with his stomach full. That's why Maulana Qari says that the tawakkul, it's a condition in the heart. It's not in the body. If a person goes and works and knows that Allah Ta'ala is my razik, every single second, every single cent that he makes, the time and money that he makes at his job, it is all reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is all reward. So the driving force in this culture is how do we make money? But there are some atharat. And there are some effects to everything. If you eat the best tasting food, there's an effect to it. There's a bad effect to everything. I was reading one book once, and they were talking about the bad effects of everything. And the book got kind of tricky. The bad effects of prayer. The bad effects of giving sadaqah. The bad effects, all the bad things that can come, which we have to be careful. Because if a person gives sadaqah, it's very good. You might be saying, Sheikh Mikaeel, how many bad effects of sadaqah? But also the test comes that, are you going to show off when you give that sadaqah? Right? Are you going to show off? By praying salat, are you going to look down on other people who are not praying? All these different things was mentioned. So everything has a bad effect. And the thing that we have the problem with, and not we, but Islam has the problem with in our culture, is that all of those things in this liberal culture that we have, and this culture which is dealing only on the outer, not thinking about the inner. Nobody cares about the ruh. Nobody cares about spirituality. It was something important maybe 30, 40 years in America ago, but not anymore. Nobody cares about it. Don't tell me about the heart and the soul. It doesn't even exist. It is those things in our culture which can lead us to the kaba'ir, the major sins, because that's the problem. We'll all commit minor sins. We all have problems. And many of the things that we take very seriously, they're usually minor sins. A person's shakal, how does he dress? All of them have written these amongst the minor sins. These are things that by praying our salat we can get forgiven. But the major sins, It is when the culture is leading us towards zina, na'udhu billah. The environment is pushing us towards an environment and an act of fornication, where now there's boyfriends and girlfriends. You know, over 40% of women in America, they are giving birth to children with no fathers. And this is not a miracle of Maryam I'm talking about. That now they have some miracle now that they don't have fathers, subhanAllah. No. They have fathers, but their fathers are not married to them. These are kids that are born out of wedlock. More than 40%. And we don't want to go into the percentages and the polls of how many Muslims are involved in this as well. Many of our young Muslim girls and more of our Muslim boys are getting involved in fornication and zina. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. The scary hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is in Bukhari, Az-zani hina yazni la yu'min. The zani, the person who's doing zina, at the time when he fornicates, he's not a believer. Some ulama say that the iman becomes suspended over his head. Raja'a, it comes back when he finishes that act. If he dies during that, Allah knows best what his condition is, or her condition. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in the Mi'raj, he saw people who were in a very strange type of oven, and they were all naked. And the fire was coming through, and the oven was such that the bottom of it was wide, the middle of it was narrow, and the top of it was wide. Kind of like an hourglass. And when the heat would come up, these people would shoot up, and they would be struggling to get through this narrow part, and then they would go to the part, and then they would be boiling in there, and then the fire would stop, and they would squeeze back down and fall down again. Jibreel alayhi salam informed Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam that these are the fornicators, the people who have boyfriends and girlfriends and do fornication, na'udhu billah. And another problem that this culture has pulled us into is music. Even more than fornication, unfortunately, our Muslim youth are getting involved in music. And music, the most fearful thing of a mu'min and a believer when he understands Islam, and this was the most fearful thing of one of the greatest Muslims we all know, Umar radiallahu anh. He used to go and ask other Sahabah radiallahu anh, and he used to always wonder that whether or not I'm a munafiq or not. Am I a hypocrite? And it's the fear of every single one of us. Am I a hypocrite? Is my iman being accepted by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala? Am I going to be erased amongst those who had ikhlas and sincerity? Am I true to my word when I say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah? And we try to stay away from all of those things that can make us amongst the munafiqeen. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said that the ghina, the singing and the music, it generates the nifaq in the heart. Kama yumbitul ma az-zar. Like when you put water on a plant and the plant grows, the same way when a person has his earphones on, his Beats earphones, and he's listening to the rhythm of some rap song or some music, not only is he enjoying that music, but at the same time, the nifaq is growing in that person's heart. May Allah protect us. Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in Surah Luqman about this. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا وَلَّا مُسْتَكْبِرًا كَأَن لَّمْ يَسْمَعْهَا كَأَنَّ فِي أُذُنَيْهِ وَقْرًا. When you recite the ayat on these people who are listening to music, وَلَّا مُسْتَكْبِرًا, they turn away in pride. كَأَن لَّمْ يَسْمَعْهَا, like they had never heard it. كَأَنَّ فِي أُذُنَيْهِ وَقْرًا, like there's some cotton in their ears. By listening to this, a person gets deprived of the enjoyment and the love of the ayat of Quran. What more terrible thing can be than that? So these are the things, the atharat, and those things that lead us towards the kaba'ir. Because Allah Ta'ala talks about the Muslims and He's not shy to say that we all will fall into some sin. الَّذِينَ يَجْتَرِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشَ إِلَّا اللَّمَمِ. The good believers and those who are the ones who will go to Jannah, they are those who stay away from the major sins. وَالْفَوَاحِشَ, and they stay away from zina. إِلَّا اللَّمَمْ, except for some small deeds. Once in a while they lied, they made fun of somebody, they did something bad, screamed at his wife. Right? Sometimes he puts a suit and tie on, does this and that, wears a little bit That's what I'm saying. If it's any sin, and most ulama say it's not sin, if any ulama say it's a sin, this is from the minor sins. Just by saying takbir ula and salat, these are all washed away. These are all washed away just by amal. This is not the focus. The focus is on where this culture leads us to the kaba'ir, which is leading a lot of people to it. So what is our antidote in this last 2 minutes? I give you a story, a short story of one Sahabi radiallahu anh. And the purpose of the story is that we have to go into these environments with iman. We cannot go into these environments and give up our deen. And what we say become muta'athir, where we are affected. But we have to become muta'athir, that we are affecting others. That when they see us, they start changing. This is the test. The worst place at the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to go to was the market area. There was no clubs and things at that time. But the market area was the worst place, full of sin. Even Nabi Sallallahu said, وَأَبْغَضُ بَلَادِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَسْوَاقُهَا. The most worst place a person can be and the most hated in the law is the market area. But still, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not stop any Sahabi from going to the market area. They all went there and they did their business. Even actually, when Nabi Sallallahu did his, from Medina when he came, the first thing he did was establish the Masjid Quba. Second thing he did, he established the market area for the Muslims. Second thing. He sat down in Masjid Quba, called the Sahaba and said, where you people buy your stuff from? Where's your market area? We're going to the market area. Most of the Jewish people have their stores. You guys are a lot of people. You have a lot of Muslims. Open up your own business. Make your own market area. Entrepreneur. Make some business. Make some money. No problem. But they went in those with iman. At-tajir as-saduq ma'an nabiyyin. Nabi Sallallahu said that the true businessman, that businessman who goes into the businesses doesn't do like all the businesses do, lying and cheating. That student that goes in university, he doesn't do like all the people in university do, hanging out and doing this, that, and lying and listening to music. No. He goes in there with iman and goes in those same places where they used to do sin. Subhanallah, Umair bin Wahab is sitting with Safwan bin Umayyah. And this is after the war of Badr. And many of the chieftains of the Quraysh have been killed. And Safwan bin Umayyah, he tells Umair bin Wahab that listen, all our forefathers are gone. There's no more mazar, there's no more enjoyment anymore. Umair bin Wahab says that if it wasn't for debts and my kids going astray, if I left them, I would take this sword and go and kill Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, na'udhu billah. They used to call him Shaitan of Quraysh. He was called the Shaitan of Quraysh, Umair bin Wahab. Safwan bin Umayyah tells him that, listen, I'll take care of your kids. Don't worry. And whatever debt you have, I'll pay it off. I'm a rich man, I got you. You just go and do that job. He gets his sword sharpened, Umair bin Wahab, and dipped in poison. And he goes and walks to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When he comes to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Nabi sallallahu asks him, why have you come for Umair? At that time, his son was a prisoner from the war of Badr. So he said, I've come to take my son. His son was named Wahab bin Umair. I've come to get my son. He said, no, you didn't. He said, yes, I did. I need my son. Rasulullah said, come on now. You were sitting in the Kaaba with Safwan bin Umayyah, and you said you had debts and problems with your children, and you would kill Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you would come and kill me. And he said that, he gave the whole story, even though this was between Safwan and Umair. Nobody else was there. Umair looks at Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and says that, me and him were only there. There was only a third who could have been listening, and that is Allah, and that Allah has informed you of what happened. Therefore I say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And the point I want to bring is after that, look at Umair, what he said, and I finish on this. Umair radiallahu anhu then tells Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that any single majlis that I sat with kufr, let it be known, O Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that I will return back to that majlis and sit there with iman. It's not just enough for us to come into those environments which we sinned in. It's time for us to go back in those environments with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The people can see the difference and the change in us. May Allah ta'ala give us the tawfiq in these difficult times and a lot of pressure on us that we hold on to our deen. It is times like holding on to the deen is like holding on to hot coal. May Allah ta'ala give us the tawfiq and give us the ability that we do this and we go into our environments with deen. We don't get affected to such an extent that now we leave certain parts of our deen that become haram and we start getting into sin. May Allah protect us from that and hold on to the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his blessed deen and the blessed akhlaq of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah bil alamin.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة
الحمد لله الذي زين سورة الإنسان بحسن تقويمه وتقديره وحرسه من الزيارة والنقصان في شكله ومقاديره وفوض تحسين الأخلاق اجتهاد العبد وتشميله واستحثه على تهذيبه بتخويفه وتحذيره ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله الذي كان يلوح أنوار النبوة من بين أساريره ويستشرف حقيقة الحق من مخايله والتباشيره صلى الله عليه وعلى أصحابه الذين ظهروا وجه الإسلام من ظلمة الكفر ودياجيره أما بعد فالخلق الحسن صفة سيد المرسلين وأفضل أعمال الصديقين فالأخلاق السيئة هي الخبائث المبعدة عن جوار رب العالمين المنخرقة بصاحبها في سلك الشياطين كما قال الله تعالى قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أثقل شيء يوضع في ميزان المؤمن يوم القيامة خلق حسن أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وذروا ظاهر الإثم وباطنه إن الذين يكسبون الإثم سيجزون بما كانوا يقترفون. الحمد لله أستعينه وأستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ما يهدي الله فلا مضل له وما يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي ساعة من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد وما يعص الله ورسوله فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات وبارك على محمد وأزواجه وذريته. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وأشدهم في أمر الله عمر وأصدقهم حيان عثمان وأقضاهم علي وفاطمة سيدة نساء أهل الجنة والحسن والحسين سيدا شباب أهل الجنة وحمزة وصد الله وصد رسوله. اللهم اغفر للعباس وولده مغفرة ظاهرة وباطنة لا تغادر ذنبا رضوان الله عليهم أجمعين. الله الله في أصحابي لا تتخذوهم غرضا من بعدي فمن أحبهم فبحبي أحبهم ومن أبغضهم فببغض أبغضهم وخير أمتي قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروني ولا تكفرون. أقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Make sure our lines are straight, shoulder to shoulder. All cell phones turned off or at least put on silent. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Sitara Begum is the mother of Mustaq Ahmed. She passed away, and may Allah grant him in Jannatul Firdaus. And Sister Saida, sister of Motiwala, is very sick. May Allah requesting for a speedy recovery and good health, inshallah. There is a sister Sadia, she's also very sick, she's in the ICU. And may Allah give them good health and speedy recovery. Wala marizan illa shafata, inshallah. ICNA has a program tomorrow in LaGuardia Marriott Hotel, Saturday, April 16th.